more about the type and length of relationship with clients or customers that you have found to be the most effective, especially for the very low income population. You mentioned the homeless, Kathy, that kind of population. In your experience, what type and length, how many hours, how many touches?
Well, I don't know if you guys have a model. I mean, I'll just say that one of our goals, our goal from the outset has been around client retention for multiple sessions, and partly that's been driven by this sort of outcomes, by our need to collect the data, and the more session, the longer the period of time that we see our counselors, our partners and their counselors engaging with the clients, over a long enough period of time with multiple sessions, you start really seeing some progress. So, I don't know if there's like a magic number. You guys may be getting at where that is and where it starts plateauing. But, I think from our point of view, from the city's point of view, we need to see, at the very least, like 3 or 4, engagements with people in order to be tracking the outcomes. That doesn't mean that the people who come for one service may have left and be totally happy. We're also doing a whole bunch of like follow-up surveys, and what did they come for, and why did they leave, and why did they never come back, and I think that's oftentimes because they actually had a specific need, they got it resolved, and it's done. But so there's things to be figured out in that one session as well. But I do think in terms of making our job and our case easier, it's, I would say it's a prolonged engagement over many months, with regular intervals of visits.
I was going to say our credit union trainers found that they opened their workshops to the community. It didn't matter if you were a member or a non-member, and they found that their members were the group that just kept coming back, and they could more easily track, okay, was their debt being reduced? Are they paying their loans on time? It was much easier for them to track it that way. But I would dare say, and I agree with you, it's at least 3 to 4 engagements in order for them to really feel a part of.
And these are one-on-ones, right?
Some of them were one-on-one, some were group, but small group under 10.
And I would just add that we know that we get the most bang for our buck in a 3 to 6 month time frame. But because it really depends on a customer's presenting issue, depends on how motivated they are, depends on how many sessions the coach is booked out for. I couldn't tell you the exact touches or hour kind of formula, although we've been collecting as many as 120 data points per customer for the last couple of years, so we have that for about 5,000 sessions, and we're just now taking a look at that, and we're slicing and dicing it in a number of different levels, and definitely the investment of our time is one of those calculations.
We had a question back here.
I had a question, thank you. Yeah, just getting back to the funding question. I'm just curious if any of you see any potential with the federal government. Are there any sources of funding with the federal government? And I know supposedly embedded in the FinReg bill is some funding for financial education. I haven't read 2,000 pages of it yet, but when it's passed, do you expect some of that to filter down, or what do you see?
Would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, there was I think it was the House version that was extremely clear and had this really sort of prescriptive piece, and the Senate version was much more sort of broad, and I don't know which survived in conference. I think it was the Senate. My guess it was the Senate, because I think Treasury was on the side of the Senate, more vague language so that they could sort of figure it out. But the House language was actually you will do this, there will be counseling, financial counseling, there will be troops deployed on the ground in order to do this. I mean, it was
And the House version was passed last December, so it's been out there for a while.
Yeah. So I think it's the Senate. I don't know what the actual details are, but I would imagine it's the Senate version. But so I think there's going to be something to be worked on. I think it'll probably reside through, at least be coming through Treasury. I think there's some interesting players at the Treasury Department who are pretty committed to this kind of work. I think, when we think about our city budget case, we're starting to apply those principles, and as we're making this local budget argument, you know, I think a lot of those things could be applied at the federal level, and actually really one of the things that I think we'd love to see is the Office of Financial Education at Treasury, which has now become like Office of Financial Education and Access. They coordinate that FLEC, that Financial Literacy Education Commission,
Right.
that where you have like every federal agency sitting on that commission. So you've got
Right.
HUD and SBA and, you know, HHS and DOE and, you know, everybody sitting around the table. So one of the things we've been really encouraging them to do is to be pushing out through federal funding streams this idea of linking financial counseling to specific programs, like making it part of, you know, the Workforce Investment Act and making it part of the, a range of HUD programs around public housing and around Section 8 and around, emergency housing assistance programs and all the emergency, we tried with some TANF, some of the stimulus funds, and I think some localities were actually very successful in mobilizing some of the TANF stimulus dollars to get it towards financial counseling. But again, it comes down to that case of like trying to prove that this is going to be the best way to like maximize the federal resources going out. If you have a little bit of financial counseling along with a subsidized program of one sort or the other, you're actually going to be doing a lot more for that client base, and hopefully the data will prove that to be true.
We have a couple.
Can I just piggyback on that one? Because
Sure.
it actually goes back to the question that Irene asked before about you. I think the specific example you asked was around homelessness, and whether for particularly low-income folks. And I don't have a concrete answer for you, but except for that, we at the clinic don't believe that anybody is too poor for these services. That even we've been working with people in domestic violence shelters. We have 2 financial coaches in the Family Resource Center with partnership with the homeless. That you're certainly not. You might not be helping, given their circumstance and given how much time you have with them. You might not be improving a credit score. You might not be knocking their debt in half. You might not even be able to get to a tax season with them. But that there's an orientation that can certainly happen even with someone without active income. So I think that there's an enormous opportunity. I just want to concur also with what Kathy's describing, that no matter what the service, that there is definitely a place for financial education and coaching.
And there's value to that.
Absolutely, absolutely.